Hi everyone. This talk time today we're going to be talking about the Mandela Effect, also collective consciousness, and the importance of tuning in and breaking that trance that maybe the propaganda machines have drawn you towards, and really tuning into your heart. So I hope you enjoy this one. I'm talking to Teresa Saunders, who's a fellow colleague of mine, and I'm Meredith McCarthy. And yeah, this is today's talk time. So Teresa, we were having a little chat about what we wanted to talk about in the talk time. And, there's a lot of pressure going on around the world where there's a lot of uncertainty around jobs and the political environment. I just thought we would talk about that and the effect that it can have on how we're thinking about things, how we turn up to things.
For sure. I think often these things goes in cycles. I don't know if you can recall in your lifetime, but I certainly can do there's been cycles where things have sort of gone downward trend for a wee while, and people have been quite concerned about jobs and finances, and world wars and, global effects of those things that are events that are happening in the world. And I think this is another one of those times. And a lot of people, I don't think, have really recovered from the effects of COVID either. That's sort of continued to impact on their lives as we've gone forwards.
Mm. Yeah, you were mentioning that yesterday when we were having a chat about the effects on burnout and people when they're in that uncertain time during COVID. And it seems to be, again, repeating itself with what's going on globally with the economy and, the instability of allies and things that we've, for a very long time, have found solace in. Things in the political space seem to be changing a lot.
Mm. Yeah, and I mean, I think it comes to like looking at our own personalities as well. Are we a half full, or are we um, a half empty cup? You know, and that does make a difference to how we actually look at the world and what's going on outside of us.
So when we, let's say, all the time check in on the news, it's going to affect your lens. So if you are overdosing on the doomsday reports, it's going to affect your relationship with yourself and the world around you in the immediate space, because it's all about energy. And the frequency of our thoughts and how that affects our emotion is a big part of what we do next. Whether we panic and we make maybe a rash decision because we were a bit upset or angry, that in a different day where maybe we're in a more pleasant mood, we might have made a different decision.
Mm.
So the climate around us, even sort of work colleagues that might be facing uncertainty in the way of layoffs, it's happening, in this modern world more than ever, where, you used to have this idea of a career, and you're in there and you're working for the government, and it should be solid until the day you retire. But it's not like that anymore.
No, I mean, long gone have the days been where you work for somebody for 25 years and you get presented that golden pocket watch. Um, I think often people now, contractors are often like 12 to 24 months, and they have such a
Mm,
fast turnover of staff. And that seems to be the norm rather than actually staying with the same employer, which puts
mm,
pressure on you because if you've got a mortgage, your contract's for 12 months. What are you going to do when that expires? How are you going to pay your mortgage, your bills? You can't really future plan your securities these days, which can really impact on people's well-being.
mm. I had a client who had to sell two of his properties and refinance and do all sorts of things because out of the blue he was made redundant. And I think that, even those that think, yeah, I'm good, I've got all of this sort of investment property here, there, and everywhere, I should be fine. But if you can't service your debt, if suddenly your main job disappears, that can be a problem. And that has a trickle down effect too, and it affects the whole family. It affects then what maybe that generation that's been brought up in that atmosphere does next. So
Mm.
that ripple effect is long lasting. The trauma effect from these times can be very real for families.
I think it's also sort of going inside and looking on your perspective of the world. What
Mm,
is wealth to you?
mm,
So often we get so caught up in wealth is like having this flash car and a beautiful home and all those financial securities. But, is wealth about having good health, meeting up with your friends, being able to laugh, being in a safe country to be living?
mm,
Um, and we often lose, I think, perspective over those things in our life, and we're
mm,
consumed by the more financial stuff.
mm. That it sort of pulls into my mind stories around World War II, where many would reflect that it was the best time of their life because they didn't know whether they were going to be here the next day, and they valued the friendships and connections. And they remember having the biggest laughs and connecting with community and banding together. And they had a common goal, and it was a sense of camaraderie, a sense of community. And I think sometimes we've lost that. The way we've been living in our life, we've maybe shrunk our communities a little. So it's time maybe to reconnect with friends, with family, and really build on those core relationships that are really your treasure.
For sure. I mean, I don't know about yourself. Again, I grew up in England in a small village. So back then, everybody knew everybody. You knew everybody down your street. And if somebody needed help with their fence or a mum wanted care for their children, often a neighbour would have them for a few hours and do baking with them or something like that. Whereas nowadays, how many people even know their next door neighbours?
Mm,
Or would even dream of giving their children to the next door neighbour to look after or somebody up the street. Times have changed dramatically, and I don't always think necessarily for the better.
mm,
Um, and I think checking in with ourselves and with hypnotherapy, we can do that. Look at what we actually truly believe and values of things, and maybe change your mindset on what is actually important for your health
yeah,
and well-being.
yeah. There are interrupters in the universe of our history all throughout time. Genghis Khan was one which comes into my mind, where he would go from one place to another and rape and pillage and take over and create carnage. This is the state of the humankind. We go in these times in and out of war, in and out of prosperity, and then something happens to collapse it, to collapse that paradigm. But I do believe we're going through an awakening right now. I think things are starting to get to a pressure point where people have had enough. Good old fashioned values and common sense is rising, you know. So instead of putting our head in the sand, it's really important that you start to really educate yourself on what's really going on here, because
Mm.
there's a lot of propaganda, a lot of white noise that's making the truth very muddy.
Yeah.
And so it's important, for people to deal with truths rather than assumptions. We need to all do our homework really well. What is that person actually saying, rather than hopping into a short news feed that's been sensationalized? Even the titles aren't always correct about what happened because they want the clickbait.
Yeah, for sure. And knowledge is power, not just being a follower because somebody said, like you say, go and have a research, dig deeper, find out what it actually is. And do you actually believe what they're saying? Is that your belief, or do you think, well, okay, that's going, I haven't got control. And I think this is
Mm,
something else we need to look at. What things can we actually control in our world?
mm,
because so often we focus about all those things that we can't control, that are completely out of our control, and that
mm,
just makes our life more of a misery sometimes. Yeah.
mm. Well, let's look at collective consciousness for a moment. We were having a chat earlier, weren't we, Teresa, about the Mandela Effect.
I just want to say, sorry, for 1 minute, it
Yeah.
sounds like we're always chatting. We do actually work as well, sometimes. We do
In
talk a lot
between,
though too.
in between, yeah, we have all these ideas and conversations. So you get to kind of, I guess, hear our idea or thought played out a little bit more in the talk time.
Mm.
So, did you want to sort of explain what you understand about the Mandela effect?
So with the Mandela effect, my sort of understanding is something that often somebody believes has happened or thinks has happened. So you have a real event, and then people see a different side to it. And then that gets carried on down through the generations or through different people, and then they really believe that it's actually happened.
Mm,
One of these things we were discussing was like somebody believed that Nelson Mandela actually passed away in prison in the 80s, whereas we actually know that that isn't actually true. But there are people that do believe that. And
mm.
another one is like with Forrest, not Forrest Gump, that is another one, but Looney Tunes. So how's it spelt? Looney, Toon, or is it Looney, Tune? And a lot of people will swear that they have seen it Toon. That never existed. It was Looney Tunes because it actually come from pictures set to music, hence the word tunes. But people really believe it is spelt Toon, and they've actually seen it advertised.
And so I was talking about two ideas to you earlier, and one was the Chinese whispers idea, where you get like maybe 20 people and you have a thought and you whisper it into the person's ear and then they pass it on, pass it on. And by the time it gets to the 20th person, it's quite different to what it started with.
Mm.
So there are a lot of distortions in the world, and it can just take one person to plant a distortion out there, and then the collective consciousness for a group of people will take it on board as if it was true. And so then there's a whole lot of people that would hold that message, that understanding, that belief, and it kind of has that energy about it that rings right, that feels true, it must be. But our brain is very good at distorting, deleting, and generalizing information. So we can't really rely fully on our memory, to be fair, unless you are one of those people that has an eidetic memory, which you absolutely remember every day, what time of day, what happened when, and who said what, and all of those things. So there are those people who really do remember things quite precisely, but most of us do not. Most of us are very much distorting through our lens. Now, if we imagine how good we might have been as a speller growing up, if you didn't know to listen and then read the lyrics of something and see whether it matched what you thought you were hearing versus what was actually being said. There are many, many pieces of music out there that sound like they say one thing, but actually they're saying something else.
Mhm.
And there will be maybe three subsects of the community that hear it differently. So, and not necessarily, there'll be the one that heard it correctly, and then there'll be another set that heard it like wrong, but the same kind of wrong, and then another set again that will hear something else, but it's the same kind of wrong again. Like literally, it's got two different versions of incorrect listening, and that's very common, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh yeah, it really is common. And I mean, I've got a smile with you saying about the music, words that you actually thought for years. And then when you actually listen to it when you're older, you think, oh, was I really singing that? It's that word. It's not this. It's got a
Yeah.
completely different meaning altogether to the song.
And I think too, your storyteller from within will catch a glimpse of the sound and predict what it should be and make it that. So we often do that. We distort how we think it's meant to be because we hear it a certain way. We think, oh, it means that they're talking about that. But often, if you actually talk to the artist, it's got nothing to do with what you thought it was about.
Mm. Yeah, so true, so true. And I think your mood also sometimes influences what you actually hear as well.
Hmm. For sure. So when we're looking at the Mandela effect, it is quite an interesting conversation. So I invite people out there to have a look into it. I'm not so sure about parallel universes and switching over timelines and things. There are
Mm.
some interesting concepts out there. I'll just park into the skeptic lane for that one. But I definitely think it's more a group consciousness, a shared consciousness in this plane that can often together distort something.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And it can go either way as well. I think, what you focus in on, you attract. So if you get many people focusing on something, then you're going to attract it. It's, whether that's negative or positive
Mm.
intention that's been set.
And you see that with subsects of different pockets of religion and things. Maybe the Christian church, they have then a breakaway church and another one and another one. Like they're all these different versions of Christianity. Which one's the right one? Which one, they all say they're the one.
Mm.
But that group of people, they all come together and they're singing from the same song sheet, if you like, of belief. And it makes sense to them. And so that as a collective energy, it serves them very well.
Mm.
Because there
Yeah.
could be something in the other doctrine that they were privy to that didn't sit well with them. But this other group, they have a slightly different way of looking at it, and that feels better. So I'm going to go over there.
And you often see these things happen as, yeah, something sort of, as you say, gets distorted in your
Mm.
mindset, your memory, and then you change your beliefs, and that can change dramatically how you then see the world through your lens.
Mm. And then we go on a justification process where we're compounding that idea, we're reinforcing it again and again, so much so that we can't even imagine it being wrong or incorrect. And that is the power of hypnosis. But a lot of times there are certain types of leaders that are very hungry for power who understand the art of suggestion, and they will blatantly lie about whatever it is as if it was true. And there will be a section of the community that will take on board, because it's been delivered in such a convincing way, that to be true and not question it, which is very interesting to see occur. So that then creates division. So we're seeing a lot of this over and over again. But I do believe that we are going through a an upgrade. I think humanity is needing sometimes that saturation to wake up, to realize how powerful we really are in our own right, and to come together and shed some of the old propaganda or the old cycles of destruction, and to begin a new era, a way where we are coming together and we're questioning the old paradigms. We're thinking about how does that serve us, and not just us right now, but future generations to come. Like, what is that ripple effect? Because we have on Earth been very good at consumerism, and we've got so good at it, we are destroying the planet. There are mounds of um, waste that are commercially building from excess clothing supplies. Where do all those old clothes go? Even the dye, the toxic chemicals that it goes towards the clothing industry, that is really not great, and it's not sustainable. So we're getting to a point we've got one earth, and we've got to look after our earth. And humanity needs to get to that point of saturation where we wake up and we do better. We start to really own the responsibility to look after it, rather than be self-centered and think about what we have right now that's maybe comfortable, but it's not sustainable. What
Mm.
does sustainability really look like? And I do believe we're going through a bit of a reshuffle of what that might need to be moving forward from here.
Yeah, I do hope you're right in that way, because I do feel if we continue like this that we are actually going to destroy the planet that we're actually living on. I mean, sort of open yourself to question, why aren't we taught about homesteading and basic living sort of requirements at school? And my sort of take on that is because then we'd be independent. Governments don't want us to be independent. They want us to follow and comply, so
Mm.
that we do as we're told. I'm not saying we were to go on a riot, but if you're independent, you question things. You don't necessarily always follow. So then
Mm.
you're making your own decisions and informed decisions, rather
Mm.
than just saying, "Oh, so and so said that was right. That's what we must do."
Mm.
Um, and following suit of buying all these consumables just because it's because everybody's done it, and if I don't have that, then I'm going to be the odd one out.
Yeah. So, like plastic bottles, we're being absolutely bombarded with these plastic bottles, and it's coming from one main industry, you
Yeah,
know. And there needs to come a time where it's not about recycling. There's too much to recycle. We are creating. We're getting it wrong from the beginning. We don't need this plastic, and we cannot continue having as much plastic as we currently do. It's suffocating environments everywhere,
it's being
and
found in human bodies, isn't it, and in your lungs and in your clothing, and yeah,
microplastics. Yeah, yeah. So
quite
I think
scary.
in the way of a hypnotic sort of thing, the advertising industry that's taken us down that road around profits, generating profits, and you know the company structure of shares, and having returns on their share where they have to get more and more every time, to please the shareholders. There are structures in place that are really broken in a humanitarian kind of way, because it doesn't serve humanity. It serves a private enterprise. If you want to line your pockets and make millions, sure. But actually that's kind of a destructive energy, because we're all one. We're not separate. We're part of the same planet. We walk on the same earth. And this is a sacred place. So as a hypnotherapist, I kind of see people lost in trance, being hypnotized into consumerism and ways of thinking and being that aren't in line with actually their natural nature and how nature is. And
Yeah,
so, yeah, sorry, you go.
I was going to say, and you would know as actually being a teacher of hypnotherapy that one of the interventions we actually use is NLP, and how that is used by various politicians, prime ministers, salespeople, to actually hypnotize or conform for people to actually do and thinking that it's in their own free will. I mean, maybe you can explain it better to people of how that's actually done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the strongest emotion wins. So you've got to elicit emotion, okay? And you've got to kind of get into that consumer's mind, what's in it for me? So you've got to advertise it. And they know after 6 times that the person who wasn't interested the first time they heard it, after that 6 period, 6 times of having it in their face and justifying why it would be good, they suddenly want it. So it doesn't take much to get a human being from not interested to finding, oh, that's the trend. I feel like I want to do that now.
And the
fashion
art of
is a
music.
good example, like flares, or mini skirts. There was always the first, and everyone's going, "Oh, I can't believe that they're wearing things like that." And then suddenly, because they start to see it over and over again, they normalize it, and suddenly they're purchasing the mini skirt or
Mhm.
the flares or whatever that next trend might be. Knickerbockers. I don't know if you remember those.
Yeah,
You
we've
know.
gone through a few fashion stages in our lifetime now.
Yeah.
Dare I
Yeah.
say? At least we survived them.
So, the idea of mass hypnosis, when I was a kid, the word propaganda just suddenly made the world make sense. I thought, oh, so there's a lot of people who are manipulating the truth to get what they want, and they don't care if they lie about it. Wow. That was quite an insightful aha moment,
Hmm.
because that then explained a lot of hypocrisy. I would see people saying something and doing something different. And it just like, what?
Yep.
What is that? Double
Yeah, where did the
standards.
walk your talk go? Yeah.
That's right. So I think, humanity needs to break out of the trance of being hoodwinked by all sorts of things and start to do an audit and edit of their truth, checking in, zooming in. How does my heart feel about that?
Mm.
How does my heart feel about that? And just kind of getting connected back to your heart space, because your heart knows the answer.
So, and I mean, I think we often forget now to listen to our heart and to our gut. You know,
Mm,
we're ruled by our head quite often, those emotions. Whereas if we actually went with our gut feeling or our heart feeling, then probably a lot of our decisions would be quite different.
yeah, for sure. Well, if you are out there and you want to know more about hypnotherapy and you want to help humanity wake up and be part of those people on earth who are guides supporting people to be their best selves, then hypnotherapy as a career is an amazing career.
Mm.
And I love training people. We're just in the middle of doing inductions at the moment, aren't we, Teresa?
We are, and that's fun watching the students evolve and learning those language patterns.
Yeah. So
Instruction.
if you're keen to find out more about hypnotherapy and becoming a hypnotherapist, check out the website nzach.ac.nz. We're still taking people in. You can join anytime during the year. It's a rolling intake. And if you do like what we talk about, I know this one's a little bit different to how we normally do it, but we thought it was a really good topic to talk on today, because there is so much going on out there, that, yeah, we just wanted to give our voice to it. If
Mm.
you want to tune in, we do a podcast once a week, and it comes out on a Wednesday morning, New Zealand time at 7 a.m. So share, follow, and put on
Subscribe.
that notification bell, because apparently, algorithms change a lot, and yeah, it'd be nice to get what we have out there into the world.
Yep. And comment below if you prefer this style of podcast. Let us know, or if you prefer the more structured way, then also tell us. We're open to feedback.
Yeah, excellent. So thank you again, Teresa, for talking with me today, and I'm sure we'll have lots of wonderful, juicy talks after this as well.
For sure. Thanks, Meredith. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.